Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sluggo Wasserman back for the 194th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. It is Indigenous Peoples Day, and we have a full boat, as always, starting with the great Chase Iron Eyes, who those of you in Radio Land are missing a really, really beautiful shirt. But Chase, it's always great to have you on. We're joined with the wonderful ANDREA Miller, who's going to give us an update on her fantastic grassroots campaigning, which the New York Times actually took notice of. Very, very interesting. Then we're going to be joined by a great group called Field Team 6. Not the people that got Osama bin Laden, but these people do grassroots organizing as well. In the second hour, we're going to go to that ultimate minefield, the Middle East. We're going to have a heartfelt and civil discussion on what's happening in Israel, Palestine. Everybody's going to get 4 minutes to speak, and we will see how long that goes. And then we will jump in the second half of the second half hour into more election stuff. We'll be joined by the great organizer, Russell Green. Want to discuss a tremendous piece by Thom Hartmann, and also do a bit on the nuclear issue. The second hour on Israel is going to start with some serious poetry. Probably the only way we could deal with such a catastrophic situation. But it is Indigenous Peoples Day, although many of you will be listening afterwards. So take your cues. We are joined by the great Chase Iron Eyes, one of the most important figures, leaders, and spiritual presences in the Indigenous community, which, despite all odds, ladies and gentlemen, is still with us, despite the best efforts of the English Puritans and their ilk. We still have a very powerful and important Indigenous community in this country, thank goodness. And Chase, on this day of commemoration, you're going to talk to us for about 20 minutes, and we're really honored to have you with us. So welcome to Indigenous Peoples Day, and welcome Chase Iron Eyes.
Yes, sir. Somebody please let me know when I hit 20 minutes. I don't have a way to keep track.
We'll tell you.
Even though I am a lawyer in my other life, and we're supposed to keep immaculate time. But I want to first thank TATANKA for inviting me on. I've been extremely busy the last few days, the few weeks, months. Everything is blurred together the whole summer. And before I give an invocation, I just want to let the people here know that today I'm in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is the spiritual epicenter of our people. The Ocheti Shakowee is what we call ourselves, but the world knows us as the Sioux Nation. That includes the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, the Standing Rock Nation, Cheyenne River, Rosebud, 9 just in what is now called South Dakota alone, a couple in what is now called North Dakota, 1 in Montana, 1 in Nebraska, about 4 in Minnesota, and about 15 in what is now called Canada. We've been here forever. We don't really know how long we've been here, but we have knowledge. But I'm not too concerned about linear time anymore. And I know that I've been on the show before, and I feel a real connection and a tether to those of you in the human family that are also seeking and giving yourselves to a deeper understanding, a more meaningful way of walking about your days, and the purpose and the meaning and the direction of whatever spiritual discipline you might find yourself engaging in today. I want to strengthen that. I want to offer the depth and the substance of our lived worldview, it's not pejorative, but like some academics might call it a mythology. We just call it a knowledge system. It is a system of knowledge that tells a people, as representative of the two-legged beings, the human family, it tells us who we are, where we came from. And for us, that's here in the beautiful Black Hills of what is now called South Dakota, the home of Kristi Noem, as some of you may know. things are really tense right
Well,
now.
remember, and since you were with Christy Noem, you got to be very careful about where your dog is. So, do you know where your dog is?
They're guarded. I feel the tension in my own family, in my relatives on Standing Rock still. We've been standing up to corporate fascism, corporate hegemony, since the invention of corporate personhood, really. And this is during Sitting Bull's time that corporations gained personhood, the same rights that you, a divine flesh and blood living being, two-legged being with 10 fingers and 10 toes, the same rights that inure to us and that we can avail ourselves of, natural rights, birth rights. Now the corporation, which is a complete legal fiction, also can avail themselves of those rights, constitutional rights to free speech, for instance. Some of you might remember Citizens United. So since Sitting Bull's time and Crazy Horse's time, there's been an advancement in enemy that is seeking to usurp your spiritual authority, my spiritual authority. In the history of our peoples, whatever demographic you might identify with or consider yourself to belong to, these forces and these colonial forces and abstractive forces, the forces that separated a human being from their ability to walk in a sacred manner and understand themselves and connect themselves with the sacred universe, that goes back thousands of years before what are now known as white people. They were known as white people when they landed on our shores in the last 300 years, but they were not known as white people when Columbus landed here. They were known as Europeans. White people is an invented concept, just like Indian, just like black people and so forth. And my job has been to try to unify people who are seeking to liberate themselves from those assigned categories. And they're very real. I'm not saying that racism is not real. I mean, we're 500 years plus since Columbus was lost and landed in Taino country, and the Taino people are still here. I like my good brothers, and they're spread all over. But Puerto Rico and south of there into the West Indies, what is now called the West Indies, we've had a long standing fight to be who we are and to assert ourselves and our authorities against the corporate rule and the corporate imposition, the dehumanization, really, that is happening to all of us. So Indigenous Peoples Day, it's not a federal holiday yet. It is still Columbus Day. And, for those who might want to celebrate somebody like Columbus, we need to reevaluate and renegotiate, really, the fabric of what makes us a people, what makes us a nation, the cultural mythology, the stories that we tell ourselves as human beings and as Americans. We have to tell the truth now, and we have to reconcile. We have to seek a healing, because that healing has been denied to us by all of the institutions of the colony to this day, right now. The educational institutions, the institutions and halls of government, the institutions that drive the energy policy and the foreign policy of this colony, the United States of America, my country. Those forces that drive those policies do not have your best interest. They do not have humanity's best interest. They do not have Mother Earth's best interest. Look at all of our people in the throes of those two giant hurricanes on the East Coast right now. That is a completely disruptive crisis that we don't seem to have the money to help our own citizens. Yet we're sending billions and billions of dollars to those corporations who drive that policy. Below that 10,000 foot level are the other players, the nation states and the other elected leaders and so forth that participate and propagate that dynamic. But I've only been paying attention for 20 years, I would say. And I see, and I don't mean to, Tatanka is my elder. So if you're about as old as Tatanka, you've been paying attention a lot longer than I have. And I know you feel that. I know that you connect with that, because we naturally want peace. We are inclined to seek peace. But when peace is being denied to us, then it frustrates us and it makes us feel like we need an outlet for the energy, because we feel assailed upon. We feel like violence is being instigated against us. And it is. It's not the same violence that's being instigated against communities around the world, again, at the behest of those corporations who are driving those policies. So we have to fight for peace. As crazy as that sounds, we have to fight for our natural rights, our human rights, our birthrights, and our constitutional rights, because there is a conditioning and it's not even gradual, it's an encroachment, it's an immediate encroachment that is seeking to confine us. And I stepped up to those lines, right? There's a line where the arms and institutions of capital, power, privilege, extractive capital, power, and privilege, they have a monopoly on what is considered law and order in the country. So when I'm trying to protect clean water for 18 million Americans plus my own children, they declared me to be a terrorist, a religiously driven eco-jihadist, is the exact words that private military contractors used against me and my daughter and my wife and my family. So if they can do that to me, they can certainly do that to every single American in our country, in our powerful, beautiful country. So in these times, I want to send the message that we have to stand together. We have to give each other grace. And yes, this is a controverted country, and we've survived a genocide. I would even say that we are surviving policies right now that are designed to bring about our extinction, tribal sovereign extinction. And I know that because I've studied the law for a long time, and I live on the Pine Ridge Reservation, where it's very visceral when you're that close to the blood of oppression, and you can feel the chains. You can feel the chains there. We have the highest suicide rate. One of my son's good friends, 18 years old, committed suicide. I've seen 14-year-old children who've committed suicide. The educational institutions, the institutions of Hollywood and so forth, tell a certain story about Native people that we know not to be true, one that doesn't empower us, one that dehumanizes us, one that degrades us. So we're fighting on all fronts. That's why I say there are policies in place that are designed to bring about our extinction and to eliminate our authorities, because indigenous nations, indigenous peoples, when we reach out and we want to shake hands with our American brothers and sisters with whom we signed treaties with whom we swore to uphold divine covenants, that we would protect the American people against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And the American people also swore the same, even though your leaders or American leaders fall way short of the integrity required to uphold those covenants. But we ourselves can do that, and we have to do that. So I wanted to send that message. And I just want to offer a voice, an invocation, because I just came from a beautiful ceremony, a beautiful march and pageant. Pageant is not the right word, but it is where our people are dressing up in our ceremonial garb, our attire, our regalia, and we bring our sacred herbs, we bring our sacred instruments, and we're gathering now in all these streets, these downtown city centers in all the cities in America, from Seattle to Los Angeles to Denver to Washington, D.C., to New York, to Cleveland, Ohio. These are the ones that I know about, and right here in Rapid City, South Dakota. And we brought our drums, we brought our headdresses, we brought our eagle fans. These appointments and these anointments that we still carry to this day are going to empower anyone who we were able to make relations with. So I want to stop talking to you guys and with you guys and just offer my voice to creation, and then I'll be done, and hopefully I'm right around that time there, my good friends.
You're wonderful, Chase. Gorgeous. We did want to ask you briefly about Leonard Peltier.
Let's do that.
We talked quite a bit about, and you are the most dangerous combination of all human beings, you're an indigenous person and you're a lawyer. Doesn't get any more powerful than that. Go ahead, please. If you'll tell us the latest on Leonard, we'd appreciate it.
Well, I mean, man, we haven't even got a response really from the Biden administration. We are petitioning him. He has a new set of lawyers. We're in direct communication with his official advocacy team, and we're in touch with those who are investing in advocating for his freedom. As many of you know, Leonard Peltier has just turned 80 years old.
God.
He has ailments and health conditions, including diabetes, including diminishing eyesight, including he's frail now, and he's the furthest thing from a danger to society or a threat to anyone. And every time the United States government or whatever administration might be in power, red or blue or whatever, they don't seem to be willing to entertain or consider truthfully what it means to free Leonard Peltier. And many of you know the story. And in order to free Leonard Peltier, the FBI and the United States government would have to admit that what it did on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which resulted in, 70 people or more, it's definitely more, but the FBI admits to 69 people who were killed and murdered, and they chalked probably like 80% of their deaths up to exposure. It's completely criminal. It's completely ludicrous, but that's why there's such a holdup to free Leonard Peltier, because then they would have to go back and look at those times and try to atone for them. But the movement right now is to get Leonard Peltier transferred, to get him out of a maximum security prison. Again, this is a man who's a survivor of the boarding school era. Leonard Peltier went to what's known as Wahpeton Indian School, which is one of these schools where children were abused in all manners of that word, and whose culture and ways of life and dignity were erased, or at least attempted to be erased through violent practice. And he survived that. So we definitely want people to connect with the campaign to free Leonard Peltier. Continue to educate your peers about Leonard Peltier, even sharing some of the posts that are coming out from whoisleonardpeltier.info. And also there's an awesome video, I believe it's at freeleonardpeltier.us, that some of my friends were able to put together from archival footage from 50 years ago, 45 to 50 years ago. We believe that everybody on the right side of history, and everybody who wants to make right the injustices that are still being inflicted upon Native people, are willing to advocate for Leonard Peltier's freedom. He's been in there for...
There's been a suggestion that what if you offered to have him remanded to the custody of the tribe?
That's a very good idea. I know that his team
that way it wouldn't be saying he's freed, but he'd be with you.
He'd be able to be at home. That's what he most wants, is to be within his homelands. Now his homelands are the Turtle Mountain, Ojibwe or Anishinaabe people, and the Sioux people, the Dakota people, and he has a home on the Pine Ridge as well. That's a great idea, and
you could call it call it house arrest.
Yes,
but he'd be home.
He would be home. He could go to ceremonies.
Right. Maybe somebody in the FBI would go for that he's not freed, but he's under your custody.
That's a very good suggestion, and I'll touch base with my friend there, Paulette, who is on his team.
I think the real window is after the election's over, but while Biden is still in office. Mm-hmm. We're all praying for that, so let's hope. Okay, Chase, I know you got to go. We got two hands. We'll recognize them. Then we'll go to Andrea Miller. Then Russell Green has joined us with a report, and then Field Team 6. Ruth Strauss, please, and then LYNN FEINERMAN, and then we'll move on. Chase, you're great. You're really fabulous. It's wonderful to hear you. Go ahead, Ruth, and then LYNN. I'm amazed that they allow Indigenous people to become lawyers. That you better enjoy it. That may change. Go ahead, Ruth Strauss, please. Did you disappear on us? We have 53 people with us. Ruth, are you unmuted? Go ahead, LYNN, and we'll get to Ruth.
Okay, thank you. Hello, Chase. Blessings. I really heard when you were talking about spiritual usurpation. I really heard um the complexity of that. When you look just at Project 2025 and you see how much is hidden in that manifesto, to kind of recreate the doctrine of discovery in a sense. I mean, it's kind of a return of that snake, that serpent that wants to take over and make itself look like you, but it isn't you. And then it and then you end up in that trap. And so much of that is going on. Political commentators are talking a lot right now about how Trump is trying to make Kamala look like him. And he's trying to project everything he does and then accuse his victim. I just wanted to kind of amplify what you were saying, because there's so much imposterism, impersonation that's going on right now, and it's psychological, not even just literal.
Right.
So thank you for that.
There's almost no integrity. I mean, Trump changed everything. Trump changed the game in 2016. You don't have to be, a relatively spotless candidate. You don't have to speak the truth. You don't have to do any of that. It's different. Politics is entertainment for a lot of people, but it's life or death for those of us who are targeted within Project 2025, including women, indigenous peoples, any dissenters. And so that is a very well-placed focus for us to galvanize around is Project 2025.
Well, my view was shaped when I was growing up. There was a comedy album by a guy named Stan Freberg, and he has a scene where Columbus, lands on the beach and claims that he discovered the indigenous people. And they say to him, "What do you mean you discovered us? We discovered you on the beach here." That shaped my entire life, that one line in that album.
The doctrine of discovery, matching that with the 2025, I'm going to take that suggestion and I'll give some source credit. I'll do a video on it or something because it's brilliant.
Go for it, please. Last one, Ruth Strauss, and then we're going to move on to Andrea Miller, and then Russell Green, and then Field Team 6. Go ahead, Ruth.
Okay,
I got to warn you, Chase. Ruth is from Alabama, so there you go, Ruth.
I'm liberated from Alabama. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
Well, first of all, I just wanted you to know that I want everybody to know that video that you were referring to, it's a film, and I can't remember the name, but I just saw it at the Tubman House a few weeks ago. It's excellent. And what's really insidious is it's not only that the FBI cornered Peltier, but they were even more evil, and they conscripted a lot of Native Americans to work with them. So they had the tribe working against each other. And I think that was one of the, things that was kind of interesting and awful from the film. The other thing I wanted to say is, I just wanted to say one other thing. When I was in medical school, I lived on the Zuni reservation for part of that time, and it was just such a wonderful experience. And I got to go to all the tribes and meetings and all. The artwork is just phenomenal, from jewelry to basket to vases, and it's really something that should be taught in our schools. And of course, there's the horrors of being taken away from your culture at a young age, but it was just a life-changing experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Quickly, if I could respond to a couple of things. One,
please.
The federal government committed crimes to imprison Leonard Peltier. They suborned perjury. They tampered with witnesses. They excluded, or they refused to disclose. The prosecution refused to disclose to the defense exculpatory evidence. So evidence that the bullets that they were trying to say Leonard Peltier fired from a particular gun, the ballistics didn't match up, but they withheld that, which is a crime. So, if you're on the other side, it's so difficult for you to admit, hey, we actually committed crimes to imprison this man for 50 years. And so that story, Incident at Oglala by Redford, that's a good work about Leonard Peltier and the American Indian movement. Peter Matheson's In the Spirit of Crazy Horse. I know Peter Matheson has written amazing other works, but that's like a seminal work that I read when I was 18. What else? Teaching the truth about Indigenous peoples. At least we have Indigenous Peoples Day now. Some states are celebrating it. Some states are hesitant. It's a culture war. It really is. And we just have to try to stay committed to the truth, no matter what it is, and stay committed to healing. Otherwise, we're going to be divisible, and our differences are going to be exploitable. They're going to be able to capitalize on fear, on doubt, on confusion, and on otherizing. So we have to continue to fight for peace.
You got it. Thank you so much, Chase. And we look forward to having Leonard remanded to your custody on the trial there. It would be a great day. And
two great ideas came from Harvey's show today. So thank you guys.
It came from beyond. So listen, we thank you so much. Tatanka, you brought Chase. You want to say goodbye, and then we'll go to Andrea Miller. Tatanka BRICCA, chair of the KPFK board. Tatanka, you with us here? Oh, you're muted still.
Oh, he's muted.
Oh,
there you go.
I just wanted to thank you, Chase, so very much, and bring our blessings to your wonderful wife and your children. And also, I will call you about a dream I've had that I don't want to share with the people until I share it with you. It has to do with everything you're talking about. Thank you.
All right, my man.
Wopila.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Wopila.
And come back
I
soon.
will. Anytime,
You're always
Harvey.
welcome.
Have
Take care,
Tatanka
bro.
hit me up. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Well, we have another very powerful person to talk with us, Andrea Miller. I saw a piece in the New York Times today or yesterday, and I don't know if it's a good sign or an insidious sign, but the New York Times ran a whole piece comparing the ground operations of the Trump campaign with the Kamala campaign. Did you want to comment on that? So you're the master, you're the queen of grassroots organizing here. What do you think?
Well, I read the article, and yes, the outreach in the Harris campaign is far more structured, and hopefully is really bringing in people from local communities. We know that when it began, that is not what they were doing in the Black community. They were bringing people in from other communities. And when they found we were there, sometimes people gladly worked with us. Other times they did not. So it's very, very interesting. So yes, there are a lot more offices. Yes, they have a lot more structured things that they want to do, but they are not really making use of local resources, which is kind of what party operations always do. And it has always been a problem.
Well, let's hope he can solve it. So in the world of the Center for Common Ground, I've put out a notice, and I'm going to start to have to build our network better as we move forward, but I put out a notice, 3 basic things that people who are not going to leave their armchairs can do on this election. One is contact your group, the Center for Common Ground, and make phone calls, because you're the leader in the phone bank world. 2, get to Gray McClendon's group, Communities United, and support their door-to-door operation, which you share with Ray. And then 3, go to our website, usgrassroots.org, which you named, to find out, be kept up to date on the latest for people who are protecting the election, working for JLTV. It's our umbrella website now, usgrassroots.org. Andrea, going forward now, and next week, by the way, and I do want you to come back if you would, next week, which is going to be a little shy of 3 weeks to the end of the election, or thereabouts. I want to do the deep dive on where we stand with the election. We are nonpartisan, but Thom Hartmann has just issued a very frightening piece on how the election could be decertified and all that stuff. And Andrea, you're I hope, booming on the phone banking. So tell us what's going on with the phone banking and your campaigns, please.
Well, number one, on the phone banks, we are running phone banks in Virginia. Virginia started early voting on September 20th. So far, 712,670 people have already early voted in Virginia. Yay. So those votes are basically in the bank. North Carolina begins early voting on the 17th. Georgia actually begins early voting maybe today, or it's really, really close. So we've got phone banks for Virginia, for North Carolina. And in North Carolina, we have moved outside Mecklenburg and Raleigh, which that's the part of North Carolina everyone knows. And we've moved east to the North Carolina Black Belt. That area is not getting a lot of attention. Everybody and their brother is running around in Mecklenburg and Raleigh. They know those places. So we've got phone banks running into places like Nash and Wilson and Wayne County out there on the east. We also just opened up our phone bank to Mobile, Alabama. Alabama has a brand new second congressional district that is a majority minority district. So we want to win the second congressional district in Alabama. Now, the Alabama Black Belt begins in the city of Montgomery, the capital of Alabama, and then it heads west out to Selma and then through the western part of the Black Belt. But it also goes down south to Mobile. CD2 is the southern range of the new CD2. So we will be texting that. We will be calling that. We are also working in Florida and Texas. Now, here's a little piece of information you may not know. Florida and Texas, both states, when you look at registered voters, 50% of the registered voters are European or white, which means 50% of the registered voters are people of color. There is no reason for Florida and Texas to look the way they look. It is because Black voters, Hispanic voters don't vote. So we are doing turnout in Florida and in Texas. Those phone banks are up and running. So wouldn't that be amazing on November 6th to hear that we had won Texas, and what the heck, I like to dream big, and Florida.
Well, there you go. And I don't think, in a nonpartisan way, I don't think that there are two more loathsome creatures in the U.S. Senate than the senators from Texas and Florida. So, Andrea, more power to you. And of course, we're always asked, oh, what can I do? And you can make phone calls without leaving your chair in a nonpartisan way to get out the vote. And
what I want to say, Harvey, is number one, no one will ever get your phone number with our phone banks. And our phone banks are very easy to use. They are not going to run away with you like you're on a runaway horse. And most importantly, we leave messages. Would you really knock on someone's door and not leave a piece of literature? How dumb is that? When we call people, if there is an answering machine, we leave a message with where they can early vote and when it's available. We make sure voters get the information they need to vote. We don't just call them up and say something stupid like vote. Where? When is it? How do I get there? We work on answering those questions for voters.
Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was phone banking for Pacifica, the radio network, and the first three people I called answered the phone. I was shocked. And then after that, I left messages, but it's very satisfying. Think of it as a cheap postcard And so Andrea, if you'll put your link in the chat again, Steve has flashed it. That would be great. And people, there's no excuse. You don't have to leave the house. In fact, Ray McClendon has been on before asking people not to come to Georgia to knock on doors, but to make the phone calls. So
and we are running a very, very special phone bank. It is called Phone Banks for Introverts. And that is for people who really don't like making phone calls and are like, oh my God, I can't really be on the phone. And the answer is yes, you can. And that call is tomorrow. I am going to drop the direct, if my computer is willing, I'm going to drop the direct link to sign up for phone banks for introverts. All right, I've got it. And as I said, this is for people. We really designed it for our postcard team, our literally tens of thousands of people who write postcards and go, oh, I'm too shy to be on the phone. These are really empowering calls. You're not selling candidates to voters. You're not trying to persuade them to vote for someone. You are simply making sure they have the information they need to vote. And you know what, Harvey? A lot of the voters call us back. We have a phone number for every one of our states, and we call the voters back. A lot of times the voters call us back to say thank you. Nobody's called them in decades. How sorry is that? Or the other thing they sometimes say is, I couldn't understand exactly what you were saying when you were giving the phone number. Could you give me the phone number again? So we make sure people have the tools they need to be able to vote. This is going to be a Wild West show of an election. There's no other way to put it.
Well, you just did, Andrew, you just did the best imitation of Gilda Radner I've seen in years. But please do that. And remember, most of the time you're calling, you're leaving messages.
Yes.
What's the percentage of people who actually pick up?
If you are calling rural county and you are calling on Sunday afternoon or in the evening, your pickup rate might be as high as 20%. When you're calling the big urban counties, Mecklenburg, Charlotte, Raleigh, people have caller ID. I don't know that number. I'm not answering the phone. Rural voters, phone rings, they pick it up and say hello. It's just a different culture, and especially with older voters.
And many people, including me, believe that there's a high likelihood that North Carolina will decide the election. So, that's neither here nor there at this point. But when I start calling, I will probably focus on North Carolina. But anyway,
thank you. And if you're focusing on North Carolina, call not Mecklenburg, not Raleigh. We want to drive calls out to those rural counties because Jason Berlin will probably tell you all the big groups have descended on Raleigh, Mecklenburg.
Good. All right, Andrea Miller, thank you so much. You're fabulous. We've had 58 people listening to you, and we will want you back next week. We're going to do the big summit on where we stand on the election on October 21st.
And Sluggo, but Andrea just said we call it transition. And that is a really good segue to Jason. Jason, thank you for being patient. I know we told you to be on at 5:30 and you were here right on time. So we're going to try to catch up and get you on as soon as possible, right?
One second. Michael, we do Mike, we do have Russell Green as well. Russell, do you want to jump in very quickly? Or do you want to wait to hear what
I'm happy to wait and hear from Jason and go afterwards. Thank you for
Jason Berlin. Thank you again, Andrea. It's always wonderful to see you, and we'll see you again next week. Okay. No nukes, and let's get everybody registered. Very satisfying, by the way, the work on the phone. Jason Miller, I'm sorry, Jason Berlin, please.
Oh, you married us. You made it. I'm okay with that. I'm
It's
okay
called
with
a
that.
shidduch. Okay, go ahead, please.
Hey,
And
My
Andrea,
husband is
Andrea, we did want you to be in touch with Jason Berlin because your two groups are
They
very.
they are they are they are already in touch. Sluggo. Jason's
Okay,
been
good.
getting around. For those who aren't aware of Field Team 6, not SEAL Team 6, Field Team 6. Jason and Field Team 6 are really going above and beyond all expectations, breaking all kinds of records, reaching out and touching voters in all the swing states, and not just in the presidential race, but in House races and Senate races all across the country. Jason is going to be wonderful. He presents with humor and precision, and I don't want to take into any more of his time. I just want to sit back and enjoy what Jason has to tell us. So take it away, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yeah, thank you for having me. Thank you for Andrea Miller. Hearing you say my name. Oh, you're my hero. You're my total hero. You're amazing what you do. I love it. And I love you. And thank you everyone on this call for being the badasses on the front lines who have saved the world numerous times since 2016 and who are saving it again right now. And you're so epic. You drink from a blender. That is who's going to beat someone like that? Nobody.
Sorry. So, Jason, what does your group do? How are you linked with Andrea? And Russell Green is listening closely. So let's hear it.
Yes. So, yeah, Andrea Miller and I are we're together in this activism movement across the country. I'm the leader of Field Team 6. And yes, it's a play on SEAL Team 6 because we are the crack voter registration group that goes behind enemy lines in purple states and districts and does the impossible. We are a proudly partisan voter registration group. We're the one and only national group that is laser focused on partisan Democratic voter registration, specifically in the swing states and districts where just a few new voters decide election outcomes. So we've been doing this since 2019. We started as an all in-person voter drive organization. COVID forced us to pivot to digital, and we started building this first of its kind database that now has 40 million people in it, which is about 13% of the American population. But what we use that for is there are currently between 15 and there's 15 million unregistered likely Democrats in this database who have at least email and or cell phone that is textable. We reach out to everyone in our database, these unregistered likely Democrats, via email, text, phone call, postcard. And that is the lion's share of what we do. We have, by November 22, we have delivered 2.3 million new Democratic and independent voters, the vast majority to swing states and districts. And we are on track to at least triple what we did in the midterms this cycle. And we're looking at delivering 4.5 million new Democrats and independent voters. These voters, many of them, are invisible to the polls and to the pundits. It takes a Secretary of State in any given state, sometimes 3 months, sometimes a little more, to update the voter rolls. So these people, a ton of them, are not being included in any of the polls. And the pundits don't know about, you all know on this call, the pundits don't know about our entire national activist infrastructure, let alone Little Field Team 6 and what we're doing. But these voters are real, and they're going to change election outcomes across the country. So just biggest picture, like why voter registration? Why is that so important? Okay, so 85% of registered voters vote in a presidential election. To me, that suggests turnout is not the whole problem. It's maybe half the problem. Definitely, we need to work on turnout and get out the vote, but it's not 100%, it's less. And we also have to work on registering new Democrats because you can't get them out to vote if they don't exist to begin with. So that's where we're laser focused on feeding the beast. The get out the vote beast, that's the entire party from national to local levels. It's every campaign. They're focusing on getting out the vote, most grassroots groups. So if we can get more Democrats into that funnel, then we're going to win more elections. Another statistic, young people. Most of us know 23% of young people voted in 2020. But when you look at 18 to 24-year-olds who were registered to vote, 86% of them voted. So it's young people too that this applies to. The simple act of registering people turns them into voters. I want to show you some results quickly from the 22 cycle that inform what we are doing now. So don't believe in long PowerPoints. It's inhumane. But here's what we did. Using this database, we contacted 5 million unregistered likely Democrats. Here's how many registered: 1.5 million, about 31.5%, almost 1 in 3 registered. And out of those, 660,000 voted, about 42%, in line with midterm voting numbers. Amazing. And here's what happened. I mean, here's the cost per vote. Okay, it came out to a little under, we say $1 a voter. It's a little under that. When you break it down by vote, it came down to $2.24. Just to put that in context, this is not a typo. You're not having a TIA. This is real. Like that, actually $1,500 per vote is what the Democratic Party has spent. The closest organizations to us spend $200 to $300, and $2.24 is what we spend. The reason that we can do that is we have only 3 people on paid staff, including me. And we have almost 30,000 volunteers at this point. We have a volunteer staff of many different teams of specialized, do specialized things, about 100 people on our volunteer staff. And that is why we can do it so effectively. Just have to mention, the overwhelming majority of our volunteers and volunteer staff, of course, are women who are the ones saving the world, like doing the work. 85%, I would say. It's across, you know that. This is across the country, the activism infrastructure, national. Here's what we did in Wisconsin. Contacted 673,000 unregistered likely Democrats. Out of those, here's how many registered as blue or purple. So Democrats are independent, 287,000 some odd people. Out of those, here's how many voted, 149,000, more than accounting for the entire victory margin of Democratic Governor Tony Evers, who, as you know, months ago signed into law the first fair legislative district maps in like 11 years. In Arizona, we contacted almost 400,000 people. Out of those, 128,000 or so registered as Dems and independent, 60,000 voted, more than enough to defeat deranged psychopath Carrie Lake and get Governor Katie Hobbs into office. And just one last state. This is actually our lowest yield. It's tough to get good data on Nevadans because they move in and out so much. They're very transient. So 175,000 we contacted. Out of those, 27,000 registered. Out of those, just enough voted to account for the whole victory margin of Democratic Senator Catherine Cortez Masto, who secured Democratic control of the Senate in what was supposed to be a red wave that turned into more of a rosé spritz.
Oh, God. When you say that the people that you work with contacted people, how do they do it? Is it phone calls? Are you knocking on doors? What postcards? Okay, so postcards, we're waiting for postcards, right? So you're talking about now about phone calls and texts. Do you knock on doors?
Postcards, phone calls. We don't knock on doors. We do some in-person voter drives, and we have support training for anyone who wants to lead those in any one of our swing states. I actually think we have 10 states, state-specific trainings once a month. We love that. That's super important. Numbers-wise, we do a lot more with these digital means through our database. So yeah, text, emails, postcards, phone calls. We need an all of the above approach. These are all volunteer driven, except the emails, which we do on the back end, with our volunteer staff and the 3 paid members. Yes.
All right. So going forward, going forward, you're not going to be doing any postcards.
We are writing postcards until October 29th.
Okay.
Yeah. Just big picture right now, from now to the election, the next 22 days, gulp. Oh my God. These numbers are predictable. I should know every day. Tomorrow's
okay.
But I'm still going to have a new heart attack.
Sluggo, I just want to say it's real important to note that this is a nonpartisan Zoom. So we welcome Steve Bannon to make a call from the prison payphone or whoever from the other side to give a rebuttal to how they're going to ram Project 2025 down our throats and strip away all of our basic freedoms in a very nonpartisan way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Russell Green, you're here with us. Did you want to jump in and talk with Jason Berlin? We talked earlier. We wanted to ask you, Jason, are you related to Irving Berlin, who wrote White Christmas?
I must be, because
Okay.
so
It's a small world.
musically gifted.
Oh my God. So these are, well, which ones are the target space? The light blue or the dark blue?
The light blue. So these are our targets for. I'm gonna just wrap it up real fast, but these are our targets for right now. We have not had a chance to edit the map and revise it, but we've added Texas and Maryland for Angela also Brooks and Nebraska for Dan Osborne. So we are going.
Oh wow! So Dan
throttle.
Dan Osborne is not a Democrat.
Correct.
You are. I'd say you're not nonpartisan because he's not a Republican, but he's multi-partisan. Myla Reason, and then we'll go to Russell Green. Myla, you had a quick question, and Russell's got to jump in, please.
I do. Thank you so much. I am particularly interested in what you said about people that you've registered, not necessarily on the radar of the poll taker. I'm concerned about Montana. John Tester, we're hearing that he's not polling well. And I'm just wondering if you have some good numbers for us to kind of help us think that maybe there's hope for Tester in Montana, possibly. And then go ahead. And then I'm also very interested in Texas and Florida.
Yes. So I do have to jump at 3. I'm so sorry. So I'll answer that question.
And Russell wants to get in with you real quick. So go ahead.
Okay. Yes, we are basically in the next 22 days. We went from 15 states to 9 as the deadline hits, but we're going all the way through close of polls on election day in our final 5 states, because there is voter registration on election day in Nevada, Michigan, Wisconsin, California, and Maryland. So we need everyone to volunteer, spread the word. If you can donate, great. That absolutely helps us get to more people. And in Montana, yes, I believe there's hope. We've contacted, there's 1.1 million people in Montana. That's adorable. That's so few. We know like half of them on a first name basis by now. We've contacted like as many people, about 200,000 people in various ways to get them registered to vote. It could change election outcomes there. So
I would highly recommend in your phone calls to Montana that you not refer to the state as adorable. But Russell Green, please jump in. I don't know.
Actually, Harvey, I didn't have a question. It was a fantastic presentation, Jason, and I was going to ask about volunteer opportunities, but then you dropped the links in just as I was thinking to ask. Thank you for that. I'm really excited to hear about this. I'm glad to see your presentation.
And it's great to have Andrea and Jason and you, Russell Green, all on the same call here. So it's really good. Now, Russell, you had a group to introduce. Do you want to talk about them, please?
Thank you, Sluggo. Thank you for allowing me to join you on such short notice. It's really good to see my friends. I've been working outside.
Russell, we got 2 more minutes with Jason, so let him sum up, and then we'll get right back to you.
Oh, I misunderstood. I thought that was a segue. Jason, excuse me.
Oh, no problem. No, I thought so too. Yeah, I'm just.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, it's just 22 days left. It is. It's such a joy to be alive right now, where we have these 2 joyful warriors at the top of our ticket, and 2 people who are worthy, 2 heroes who are worthy of the heroes on this call and all the heroes in the grassroots who are fueling their victory. It's amazing to have someone like Kamala Harris, who just entered the biggest spotlight in the country without hesitation and has just hit it out of the park and been flawless ever since. Like just with entering it with joy and confidence, like a political Simone Biles, just sticking the landing. So
okay, and Russell, you have a group that I want you to introduce, Andrea and
yeah, I hope I can stay, Jason. Shall I move forward now? Great.
Yes, please.
I was just saying how nice it is to be with all of you, and that I've been out of the day-to-day campaigning after a couple of decades. I'm working on other projects that are climate activism, but through music and poetry, and looking for something huge climate-wise that could really begin to move us in the direction that we all need to go. But with this election, right here, right now, something was brought to me a couple of days ago that I'm excited about, and I want to make sure I bring it to your attention and see if you're as equally as excited about it, and we can begin to move it into our shared networks and organizations that we represent or work with. You probably have heard of it before. It's not new. I mentioned it to Sluggo. He was aware of it from years before. It's called Swap the Vote, and I'm going to take you through a PowerPoint that sort of outlines it. But the general premise is that the Electoral College, and Wisconsin's 1 million voters and 2 senators and et cetera, is a good example of it, doesn't allow the third party voter to vote with the kind of freedom that ultimately they really should be allowed to, without potentially creating a lot of outcomes that are very risky. So let me go back to the beginning of this. So it's called Swap the Vote. And I'm going to take you through the general ideas, and then I'm going to share some documents.
We need to do it quickly, but it's good.
Here I go. So basically, we all know, we just heard from Jason, we heard from Andrea, we're down to the wire, and there are 7 key swing states, in our view, that are critical to this. And there are people that are possibly going to be voting for a third-party candidate. And we know from the numbers, and I'll show you on the FAQs, or you can look yourself later if there's not enough time, why we believe there's enough of those voters to actually have an impact that could change the outcome in these key swing states. So the idea is, here I am in California. I have friends in all of these swing states. I'm going to look for one of them who needs to vote for a third-party candidate. They cannot find their way to voting for Kamala Harris. And I understand that. I voted for Jill Stein here in California in 2012. It was a very easy vote to cast. There was no risk. But now what I'm looking for is somebody in one of those swing states who understands the outcome of the potential risk of their vote in a swing state and is willing to switch with me. And I will pledge to vote for them in California. I will vote Jill Stein or whomever they ask me to vote for in the third party. And they will vote for Kamala Harris in, for example, Pennsylvania.
Or Donald Trump. Or Donald Trump, since we're not.
Or Donald Trump. Sure, we're on a nonpartisan call. So this takes you through it. I'm going to share this with you as soon as I'm done. I'm going to try to move quickly, but I want to don't go too fast.
And we're going to be going, when you're done, we're going to go straight into the discussion on Israel. We got a couple people, Israel-Palestine, but this is very important. So go ahead, please.
The idea is to source. Sorry to step on you, Sluggo.
No, please.
There's no electric matchup type of electronic app or anything yet. We're trying to see if we can do that without it being insecure and really technically savvy. But in the meantime, what we really just want you to do is think of your own network.
Please catch the rest of the show at grassrootsep.org. And please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Green Grassroots Election Protection Coalition. Thanks.